Are going live and we are live. Mike, welcome, welcome, welcome.
How you doing, man? It's a pleasure to be here.
Pleasure to be here with you. Let me pop in the comments here. Drop a question for Mike and we will answer it. Thanks for joining. We are good to go. I will let this bad boy warm up. We got quite a few people joining, my friend. Super
It's
pumped you're here,
exciting.
dude. Yeah, man.
Yeah,
Thanks everyone
me
for
too.
joining. If you guys are on the stream right now, be sure to ask the questions in the comments, and then we'll get to them towards the end. But let's give some context on Mike, and then let's just get this party started. Mike, why don't you just give a quick little intro, who you are, what you do, where you're from, blah 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 blah, all that fun stuff, and then we'll get through it.
Yeah, 100%. My name's Mike, co-founder of Kale Acquisition. We help companies that target local business basically make money with cold email, book as many leads as possible to book with that channel. Originally born and raised in Toronto, Canada area. These days I spend a lot of time in South America. Actually heading back to Medellin in a couple of days. So if you're watching this, you're in Medellin, you're heading there. Shoot me a DM on LinkedIn. We can meet up.
The nomad life,
Yes,
classic.
sir. Exactly.
Love it.
Gotta work on my Spanish, man.
Yeah, you do, especially
Yeah.
if you're going to Colombia.
Well, it's coming along, but it's hard, you know?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, there's so many words that are very similar to English. So
That's true as well. Not enough to understand the language, but maybe
yeah,
that's kind of my bar. Once I can write my cold emails in Spanish, that's how I'll know, like, okay,
yeah.
I'm fluent now. That's the
New
goal.
Tam, dude. New Tam.
Yeah,
There
exactly.
you go.
There we go.
Cool. So you target local businesses. So a lot of people watching this, maybe they have a cold email agency, maybe they're thinking about doing cold email. What does that even mean? Who's your customer, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, so let's define local business first. I think local business literally just means any business where the location has some sort of impact on how likely somebody is to like use that business, right? So a SaaS company is not a local business. You can use technology anywhere in the world. However, I'm less likely to go to a restaurant if it's in another country than if it's like right across the road from me. That would be defined as a local business. And there's a pretty wide variety of things. Like you can have, yeah, restaurants, cafes, like food things. You can have home services like landscapers, house cleaners, roofers, any sort of contractor, realtors, professional services, even like lawyers, things like that. Just anything where the location is going to have an impact on how likely you are to work with them.
Mhm.
So that's who our ideal customer works with. And then in terms of what our customer actually looks like, they can offer a lot of different services. It doesn't really matter too much to us. I think ultimately what I've realized now, having done cold email for, I want to say, yeah, just over 4 to 5 years, is that it's more like for us it's been much better to kind of consolidate our process into who we're emailing versus the type of service that we're trying to sell for a client, if that makes sense. Because for local businesses, now that we've kind of focused on this, we've developed a lot more sophisticated processes for getting really good data. I understand how to write copy to the specific type of persona, what they're more likely to kind of react to. An example of an insight here is a more strong CTA tends to work with these types of people than like, hey, do you want to watch a 30-second video? I've run this test on multiple campaigns saying something like, would you have a couple minutes this week for a call? Performs better because a lot of these people actually just do business over the phone. So they'd rather do that than like watch some 60-second Loom video versus
Mhm.
SaaS. It's kind of the opposite. So being able to focus on to sort of niche down that way has been super interesting. It's provided a lot of benefits for us, I think.
Yeah, I like it. I like it. And we'll get more into the tactics of what you're doing here in a bit. But why don't you give some context to the people watching, like how you even landed on cold email, like why you believe in it so much, like why you're built your whole business of a few years now around cold email.
Yeah, 100%. So I started, the first time I got in contact with cold email was as a BDR at a tech company. And in a 2-year period, that company grew from about $500,000 per year to around $10 million per year. So 20x in 2 years. And I would say 80 to 90% of the pipeline that we generated to actually, produce the revenue was from cold email. So we had a team of, I think at our peak, 20 BDRs sending cold emails, and that was 90% of the activity that was happening. So again, this was my first contact with cold email as a way to generate pipeline. Before that, I was running a student painting company where we were like knocking on doors and calling phone numbers and things, and I was like, whoa, we can send thousands of emails per day. I don't have somebody to slam the door in my face. I can kind of hide behind the data a little bit more. And yeah, I think from there it was kind of a no-brainer. I saw how valuable cold email was, but I also saw how inefficient it can be if you're not like doing it properly. So again, we had 20 BDRs. A lot of that work was manual, like 3 to 4 hours a day of going and actually manually finding the people we're going to email and then putting them in the sequencer and then manually scheduling them. We weren't doing a lot of personalization. It was just, it takes time to literally click schedule for all these people. And then the other thing is like, they're not spending enough time. We weren't spending enough time on the phone. So we're not really learning the sales skills we need to become good salespeople, which is the natural path. Most people that become a BDR don't want to be a BDR forever. I love that job. It did a lot for me in my professional career. So it was kind of a no-brainer. Like, if we can automate this, streamline this, manage this for other companies, they can reduce their BDR headcount, which means they can book more leads per rep, make more money, spend more time on the phone, develop their skills, and it saves a lot of money for the business as well. Really just seemed like a no-brainer win for everybody, and that's kind of how we got our company started.
Nice. So the company went from 500,000 to $10 million in 2 years with cold email.
Yeah, that's right. It was pretty it was pretty gnarly ride to the top. Before I was like, okay, I want to do my own thing. I want to see if I can ride this train myself,
Yeah, quite the trajectory. Okay, people watching this, maybe cold email agency, maybe they're trying to use a cold email for their local business, whatever could be happening. So maybe talk about like the journey of starting with cold email, and maybe share like how you started and then where you guys are kind of at right now.
Yeah, I would say where we started was like, we sucked at it, if I'm being completely honest with you. I didn't realize how strong this company I was working with, how strong their offer actually was. I think everybody, you hear this a lot in cold email, like, you got to have a good offer, you got to have a good offer. And the first couple clients I tried to do cold email for just flopped so hard. Like, I didn't know what I was doing from a deliverability perspective, didn't know what I was doing from a data perspective, was taking on bad clients. We basically made no money for the first year. Like, we didn't even know what we didn't know. That said, eventually we kind of got into the right places. I think one of my business mentors said something to me like, entrepreneurship is more about kind of being a cockroach. It's like, the cockroaches survive through like nuclear apocalypse. Like, that's kind of your only mission, is just survival the first couple of years. And then you start to get opportunities. So the opportunities for us, we found Instantly's Facebook community. A lot of the people that we still talk with today and ended up kind of pushing us in the right direction of the tools and resources we need came out of that group. So if you're watching this, you want to learn more about cold email, not just the content, but also the people you're going to meet in groups like these are going to be huge for your learning. Around that time as well is when tools like Clay and things like that started coming out. And I think we happened to kind of get on the wave just at the right time. Like, again, ChatGPT was coming out. And so I saw this technology kind of from a mile away, and I'm like, yeah, this is going to be the thing. GTM is going to just be completely filled with this stuff a couple years from now. So that was the first year. Then we started to kind of figure things out, experimented a lot in like different industries. We did candidate sourcing for recruiting for a little bit. So instead of doing like lead gen, we would actually get candidates for recruiting firms and recruiting things. But ultimately what we figured out was there's a massive opportunity for cold email to these local businesses. I think it's a lot less saturated than SaaS companies and enterprise companies are. There's a lot of them. So we're able to create an ROI for our customers. We have a couple customers where we're getting them over 1,000 leads a month. I know we just did a case study with you guys where I was talking about how one of our clients has closed like $1.5 million from the cold email leads we've sent. And that's in less than a year. So
Wow.
I can only imagine, like, I think last quarter they closed 650,000. So we're not getting too far now from $1 million quarters off cold email. So that's kind of why we decided, like, let's focus on this. We've seen this whole sales process at this point. So we just have a lot of tribal knowledge in this kind of one corner of cold email, I think.
Yeah. Wow. That's super impressive. And guys, for those watching, drop questions in the comments down below, and Mike is going to answer them. So be sure to drop questions. We're going to get to them here in a second, but don't hesitate from asking questions, because this is why we're doing this. It's not the Austin show, the Mike show, the Instantly show. It is to get your questions answered. So, okay. So obviously crushing it, experiencing cold email. For somebody watching this who's like, okay, I want to like be able to generate $1 million in a quarter for my clients, or over $1 million a year for my clients. Like, holy crap, I would never, my business, they would never leave, right? How do we do
Hopefully,
that?
yeah.
Like, what's been successful for you that these people can implement and take away so that they can either do this for themselves or do this for clients?
Yeah, I think when people talk about the 3 pillars of cold email, it's kind of 3 things, right? It's the deliverability piece, there's the data piece, and then there's like the copy offer, which I think it's kind of murky, but people lump them into the same thing. So I'm going to talk like best practices, I think, for each, and then if people are watching this, they have more granular questions, and we can answer that in the Q&A section. I would say let's talk deliverability first, because that's one of the more interesting things we realize. So one thing, I think people say that personal emails are kind of like a big no-no, like an @Gmail, @Outlook. We've measured this across a lot of campaigns. They massively outperform any other public email that we have. And again, you got to kind of consider how this data is scraped for local businesses, right? It's scraped from Google and Yellow Pages and Yelp. So some of these people, when they started their business, it was just like, you know, Austin's podcast @gmail.com, and like their
Yeah.
business picked up steam and they just never switched it. So that's the stuff that you're messaging. And then something happened about a year, oh my gosh, a year and a half ago, 2 years.
Yeah.
Time goes so fast, where Google put out this thing that was like, basically, if you message personal emails, your whole org is going to get shut down and blah,
Right.
blah, blah. So everybody stayed away from it for a while. And we realized it really wasn't possible for us to do that if we were going to message this persona. And I can't remember how we figured it out, but we basically figured out that if we get 2 sets of inboxes, rotate them every 4 weeks, we can basically indefinitely prolong the health of our inboxes. And so the insight from that is interesting, because it tells you, like, there's deliverability is a really big black box. Nobody knows exactly 100% how it works. The suspicion is that it's based on how many emails you're sending per domain, not per box, and then also how many spam complaints you're getting. However, if you're rotating them and this is prolonging the life of them, then the implication there is that it's not just total spam complaints over time, it's actually on a given time frame, right? So maybe it's like spam complaints per month or spam complaints per week or whatever. And by kind of benching these boxes for 4 weeks, you can kind of skip this completely. So I think we started doing this a year and a half ago, and we literally haven't burned like a single box or domain since then. It costs a little bit more, but again, when we're trying to get hundreds or thousands of leads a month for a client, like, it's such a no-brainer cost for us, for them. So that was one of the biggest things on the deliverability piece. And we did realize that the boxes that we would use to send to personal emails burned faster than like official enterprise emails. So let's say they burn like in a few weeks if we're sending to the @Gmails, @Outlooks, and then they take much longer than that to burn to like an @austinschneider.com, for example. So that was kind of an interesting insight, and it's allowed us to kind of cover these again, forbidden emails that maybe other people are kind of staying away from. So that's
Mhm.
the deliverability side was a massive change that we made. On the offer copywriting side, I'll say that I see a lot of people focus way too much on the technology, not enough on the marketing fundamentals. So
Hmm.
we were talking about this before we started, Austin, but like, you're a marketer before you're an engineer. I think people have gone nuts with this like GTM
Yeah.
engineer thing. And it, like, again, I went to school for engineering, you know? So so like I get it. Like, by definition, engineer is somebody who solves problems, which you're very much kind of doing. But ultimately, if you don't understand who your ICP is, you don't understand what problems really like keep them up at night, bother them, and how you're able to solve those problems, like what your medicine actually is for these people. You can be the best clay table AI prompt person in the world, like you're not going to get anywhere. I think if
Mhm.
people kind of went back to basics a little bit, really did the homework on that, focused on really deep understanding of either their own customer and how they help them, or their clients in the case that you're an agency watching this, I think they would have much better results. And then you can lay all the crazy stuff on top. Like, I'm definitely not saying like this technology is a waste of time, you shouldn't be inventing it. Like, the campaigns we're able to do now is just so insane. Like, we are so ridiculously spoiled now with the technology that's available, you know? So you should be using it, but you got to go back to the fundamentals first. And then on the data side of things, and there's a bunch of granular stuff on the copy. So again, if you guys have questions, let me know. But
Yeah.
I don't want to ramble for too long. And then
You're
on
good.
the data side of things, honestly, kind of similar advice. I would say the way I think about this has evolved a lot, but ultimately this is where the biggest difference is between targeting local businesses versus other verticals, is you have a lot less signal that you can use. So if you're targeting a SaaS company, what do you have access to, right? You have access to all the LinkedIn content they're making. You have access to all their employees, when they joined, what jobs they're posting, tech stack. Like, you have access to so much information, press releases, like depending on how big the company is. With local businesses, you have pretty much none of that information. You're, in many cases, you're going to have like the website, if they've updated it in the last like 5-10 years. You're going to have maybe some social profiles like Instagram and Facebook where their customers are, but they're not like forcing their, you know, a restaurant isn't getting their waiter to put update their status on LinkedIn and like make posts and, you know, build a social. It's like, no, this is not happening in the vast majority of cases. And if you're building signal that relies on this information, you're missing a lot, like the overwhelming majority of your market. So the way I think about data for local businesses, instead of like trying to isolate these really perfect people, I try to filter out the people that I absolutely know for sure are not going to be qualified. And then I try to just make the absolute best message I can for the rest of those people. And then, so from there, instead of like looking for signal, I'm basically trying to create it. And then if you have solid attribution, you're tracking your analytics clearly of like what types of customers are coming in, what data is available, what feedback are we getting from the sales cycle and the conversations we're actually having. If patterns start to emerge, then you can build really targeted workflows, but you shouldn't be doing that first. Because the other argument, let's say you have sort of my philosophy here, let's say 10% of it I've filtered out. You have your whole TAM, 10%, I'm like, no, this isn't good. You could break that up into 10 really sophisticated workflows, but if you kind of just treat it as this big block and create a good message, like, you're going to get the overwhelming majority of those people anyway. So why did you need to split it up in the first place? You know, like, if they have the problem that you're talking to them about, then you're going to get them, whether you send them an email because of this piece of relevance or because of this other one. So it doesn't really matter much. So I would say, as those kind of three pillars, those are the big high level takeaways, and there's a lot of stuff underneath that, but those are the big ones.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it. My biggest takeaway from you is you can't outmarket a bad offer. And if
No,
people can,
definitely not.
yeah, if people can focus on that and then also focus on that before you layer on the data, then we'll be freaking dialed. So
Yeah, 100%. And like, don't launch campaigns unless you feel confident. You start to build this intuition over time, right? I would say this is more relevant to the agencies out there. If you're talking to your client and you don't feel confident, like you don't feel good about the information you have,
Hmm.
or I have this rule for myself, like if it takes me 5 minutes, more than 5 minutes to write a piece of copy, I don't understand what I'm doing enough.
Mm.
I don't understand the problem that I'm speaking to or the offer. Like if you very clearly understand who you're talking to, how you're helping them solve a problem, it should take you 3 seconds to write a piece of copy. And you can, maybe it's not perfect, but like the general structure should not take you that long.
Yeah, that's good. I think the sword sharpening should take the most amount of time for sure. Okay, let's
Yeah.
get into questions, Mike. And guys,
Sweet.
for those on here, ask them so we can get to it because we're doing this for you guys. Okay, first question, Renee. How do you personalize emails easy, fast, and effective? You kind of hit on this, but is there a method that you kind of take your clients through? And then, like, is personalization like always needed? Because I think that's like another question mark. I think a lot of people are personalizing with, "Hey, see you our company title at company name and wanted to reach out. Must be awesome to work at company name or whatever." Like maybe give you a rundown on that.
Yeah, I would say to kind of iterate back, like definitely focus on the foundation first. If you're going like, how do I add this like really cool personalization? That's like the first question you're asking. You've taken a wrong term somewhere. Find the offer, like the problem solution combo that works well. But then I would actually say that you can stack stuff on top of this. Just make sure some there's some correlation between the relevance you're saying and the offer or like why you're reaching out to them. Like personalization can take a couple different forms. Let's talk about the relevance piece first, which is basically why am I reaching out to you? So if I'm running a Facebook ads company and I have an actual constraint, I can only work with one realtor per zip code, then I can say in the first line, hey, reaching out to you because I saw you have 4.5 stars. And I want to work with the best realtor in X city. It's like that's a very simple piece of personalization, but there's a genuine connection versus if you're
Mhm.
like, hey, saw you have 4.5 stars. I have this piece of software that I want you to. It's like it's so like
Mm.
jarring. You're like, what? That has nothing to do with the
Yeah.
first thing you said. So there has to be some sort of cohesion. That's kind of the first thing. The other thing would be the personalization in terms of like the actual messaging or value that you're providing. So I recently did a video. I've started this new video series where I pick a company I really want to work with. And then I just like do everything. I do the research, I build the campaigns, and then I do anonymized copy for them. The most recent one I did was for a company called Welcome Wagon, and they basically help companies do like new mover marketing. So somebody moves into a new house, they get them some pamphlet, bless you, um, that says like, here's all the businesses in your area. And I built a system that pulls from like a realtor.com API and basically says like, hey, just so you know, here's like 3 new houses that just sold in your area. Our data shows 85% of these people are going to work with the first business that contacts them. So you might want to go knock on their door in a couple weeks or something like
Mm.
that. So that's like a real piece of data. That is personalization technically, but on the back end, the system is a lot more complicated than just like feeding in the Google reviews. But there's 2 different types, right? There's like relevance, why are you reaching out? And then there's the actual offer or sort of body of the
Yeah.
message itself.
Yeah. I really like the relevancy piece because I think a lot of people like it's kind of like it's almost incohesive. Like a lot of the personalized lines, it just kind of it's abrupt almost, or it feels like out of
Yeah.
flow. And it's like
Yeah, 100%. And
really
like this is where I talk about like you need to understand the marketing piece first. There's this term in psychology called cognitive strain, which is basically if there's any little amount of friction in a person's brain when they're trying to read some piece of like some email or something that you sent them, immediately the brain's just like, ah, this is too much work.
yeah, yeah,
And like skip. Like I have a keyboard shortcut. I just have to press A as I go through my emails to archive my emails. Like that's
yeah.
how long it takes for you to just be gone like forever. So you really do need to again focus on the foundation first, but then you really got to be careful of all these little pitfalls that can take an otherwise solid email and just kind of condemn you to spam jail forever, unfortunately.
Love it. Okay, so I think this is an interesting thing that I also wanted to ask you. So basically, in short, Eric is having better results with generic emails versus hyper personalized lines. Is there any event where you're like, hey, we're gonna not even do personalized lines? Like, even though everybody and their mom says, hey, we need personalized lines, like what's your take on that? Have you tested that? What are you seeing? All that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I ultimately agree, but I would say this, why these campaigns tend to work better starts like before the copy. It's because you're starting from, again, like what's the problem, what's the offer, and it's just like no fluff at all. The best
Yeah.
campaigns we have that we're currently running have very little amounts of personalization. And Austin, again, we were talking about this before, like we have campaigns that are doing, we're getting a positive reply for every 50 emails we send, every 40 emails we send, and we're sending 100,000 of those a month. So like
Mm,
it's a lot of leads that we're generating. And then I would say if you have a really strong message like that, you can try to layer other things on top. You just don't want it to be like a ridiculous amount of fluff, right? So like the example I gave, you're usually going to have a line that's like, hey, here's my intro, I'm reaching out because blah blah blah. Like throwing some Google stars on there, just like, hey, saw you have a good rating. Don't do that if they have a bad rating. Like, make sure you filter them out. Otherwise, it's gonna have the other effect. I've seen adding like a little PS line. This is a really old piece of personalization, but again, it's like I think the local biz is kind of a couple years behind the cutting
yeah.
edge stuff in SaaS. If you just say like, hey, don't know if you tried this restaurant in your city, like I've seen that work as well,
Wow.
just as like a PS line, because people have like, again, if you're like a realtor or a contractor who's been building houses for 30 years, you have no idea what's going on in the cold email world.
Yeah.
So if you get a little PS line that's like, hey, don't know if you've tried Sally's Diner, but I've heard it's good. They're like,
Yeah.
wow, this person took the time to actually personalize the message. And it's like not crowding the actual core value prop. So I would say, Eric, this stuff is still worth testing, but just make sure you don't lose the heart of your message. Where I think that's where they get confused, is they're like, well, I need all this personalization. So they just
Yeah.
add a bunch of fluff to an email for these local business owners or just people in general that are very busy, look at a wall of text and are like, nope, not even going to read that. Like,
Yeah. Facts.
spam, delete.
Yeah. Relevancy, I think, is the key, Eric, probably.
Relevancy and cohesion. You can't just jam it in. Yeah.
Yeah. Just to check the box of, oh, I did a personalized line because blah 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 said do a personalized line.
Yeah, just don't do that. Like if you
Yeah.
don't think that there's value that you're adding, just don't do it. Like
Yeah.
I promise you it's okay. All right.
Okay, Ismail, reaching out to restaurants on Monday for a client. This couldn't have come at a better time. Let's give Ismail some sauce. If you were
Yeah,
Ismail,
100%.
what
100%, Ismail. I mean, honestly, there's like a million restaurants in the US alone. I would say really just try to identify what like the biggest problems of restaurants owner are, completely separate of the thing that you're going to be reaching out to them on. Figure out if the thing that you're trying to sell them is actually going to fit in to those top problems. If it's not, figure out if you can break that thing down in such a way that you can kind of solve one of these top problems. One of the things I've learned is you really can't manufacture demand ultimately. Like
mm-hmm,
people are busy. The only way that they're going to interact with you is if you are addressing a problem
mm-hmm,
that's urgent for them. So the reason why I say this is so important for restaurants too is because there's so many of them. You can actually run a pretty like heavy test. Like you could test like 10 pieces of copy at a time and just send out a bunch of emails and be able to kind of find the winning angle very, very quickly. I would not use the personalization I just messaged where you ask them if they've used this restaurant down the street, but a cool PS line that you could do is run some sort of lookup for a similar restaurant in their area and just say something like, PS, for the record, I think you guys are way better than blah, blah, blah.
nice,
Then that's like a cute piece of personalization you could run and will work.
cool. That's solid. Thanks for that. Thoughts on cold email for real estate agents. So I assume that it's for working with real estate agents, or maybe it could be the other way around. Maybe
If it's
if have you done cold email for a real estate agent before, Mike?
No, I've done it to real estate agents. I would say that, like, yeah, definitely do it. Like, these people live inside their inboxes. So, um, yeah,
Yeah.
sending emails to real estate agents works really well. I'd say that the issue is not with getting them as clients, but with getting them to like buy the thing once they
Yeah.
get on a meeting. So if you're running this for yourself, make sure you have a, like, what I call a clear path to revenue between the message you're sending, what you're going to send to actually get them on a meeting, and what you're going to get them to buy, because it's actually a hindrance to have a bunch of leads that are unqualified taking up your salespeople's time.
Yeah. That's, yeah. Makes sense.
Mhm.
Okay, I think this is in regards to your talk about sending to @Gmail, Outlook accounts. Maybe just kind of recap the main differences between setting up an @Gmail account versus, or sending emails to an @Gmail account to a business account.
Yeah, I would say they're really, in our experience and the way we have things done, I don't know if this is 100% optimized, but we don't really have it set up different. I'd say the only thing is we separate them. So we have different campaigns, different boxes,
Yeah, cool.
everything like that. But then how we have it set up right now is they automatically rotate each month. So we have like a set A, set B. My technical co-founder Rashawn would be more apt to speak to this, but I understand conceptually how it works. Is we have a set A, set B, and then basically at the start of the 4th week of the month, we start to kind of like ramp the active set down and the non-active set up. So maybe on Monday we're sending 12 for set A, and now we're sending 3 for set B, and then 9, and then 6, and then 6, and then 9, and then 12. And then by the end of the week, we've now kind of shifted completely. So I also wouldn't just like switch them over right away, because it kind of muckies the water a little bit. But that's kind of how I think about it. And again, in our case, that's worked really well for us. In the past, what we would do is we would just kind of wait until inboxes get burned and have a set on the side, but it just created a lot of logistical overhead. There was always a bit of a gap in performance. Like before we started to notice, it would be like, oh, it's trending down for a couple days. So this is a much more preventative system versus a reactive one, which for us and our clients has been good. And I think, I don't know if it was on our conversation before this or the live one, where I said since we started doing this, we haven't burned down any boxes for like a year and a half or something crazy. So yeah,
So it's kind of like a teeter totter. It's like you slowly go to this one and then you go back to that one.
Yeah, and I think the further up you go in the enterprise chain, it gets more complicated. Like for the most part, we're just using Gmail boxes, and we haven't had too many problems with the Outlook thing and some of the other stuff that people are kind of dealing with. But the further you go up, once you start trying to get in touch with companies that are, you know, they're all on Outlook, they have Mindcast and Proofpoint, some of these other protections, enterprise, like you're going to need a more sophisticated, or at least just a completely different stack. And, you know, there's completely other setups to do that. But for us specifically, this is what's worked for local businesses as a whole, whether they have like an you know, companyname.com email, or whether they have like an @Gmail, an @Outlook, and @Yahoo.
Yeah, solid. I like it. Yusuf, how do you rank lead magnet tiers used in call to actions? What have you seen work best? Good question.
How do you rank lead magnet tiers? Okay, I would say,
like, probably like, can I send you a Loom video? Can I send you a lead magnet?
yeah.
Send you 100 leads? Could I da 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 da?
Yeah, 100%. I would say for us, my biggest thing is like, we're not pay per lead or pay per meeting. So for me, I just want to make sure that our customers are making money. Like that's the most important thing to me. If we're getting 10 leads a month, but they're closing all 10 of them and they're $100,000 deals, like whatever, you know, that's, everybody's kind of happy in that situation. So I always start with a really firm CTA, because I just want to see if it works. Like if I'm just like, hey, if I start with, hey, do you mind if I send you this 30-second Loom video? Your conversion rates are going to be lower. I promise you. I've tested this a lot. If you're like, hey, can I send you this Loom video? Can I send you this thing? Then they have to watch the thing or read the thing. Maybe they completely forgot about your offer and they see it and they're like, oh, this is interesting. So I always just test like, can I give you a call sometime this week? If I can create some urgency, if I can manufacture some urgency, some scarcity, always do that. Probably the biggest psychological trigger that you should be trying to leverage within local business is like FOMO, urgency, exclusivity, because the competition is high. It is very, very high for these types of businesses. So that's the first thing I'm doing. And I'll just be like, yeah, you know, we only got a couple spots for this. Would you have a couple minutes this week to chat on the phone to see if you'd be a good fit? And like that CTA bangs depending on the offer. And the book rate is like 40% from positive reply. Why? Because you've said exactly what you're gonna do. You know, it's like, okay, I'm gonna call you, and then I'm gonna book you in with one of my salespeople. So that's the first one. You should always be trying to think about what's the straightest path to revenue. From there, I would say I wouldn't really think about it from a medium perspective. A lead magnet, kind of by definition, is a complete solution to a very narrow problem. So again, this just kind of comes back to like, how well do you understand your ICP? How well do you understand your customer? I just did another campaign, another test campaign recently for this like acquisition company that buys local businesses. And I was like, if I was a local business and somebody emailed me asking to get my business, what would I want to know? Like, how much money are you going to give me? So instead of using that as like a lead magnet, as like a dangling, like, you know, reply to me and I'll give you, I like figured out a way to like ballpark calculate it. I was like, this is approximately how much I think your business would cost. And then would just say like, is that something you'd like, am I completely off? Or is that something you'd like more information on? And that would work well. So I know I've kind of stumbled my way through this, but I think the reason why it's difficult for me to answer this is because I'm really not sending lead magnets too much these days. I'm really trying to like bake the lead magnet in to the message so that they don't have to, it like marketing is so competitive and people are so aware of these tactics now. They're so sensitive to the bait and switch. I think if you can find a way to bake the value in to the email itself, you do a couple things. One is like you just show good faith and you kind of initiate that reciprocity principle, the principle that everybody wants to kind of reciprocate any goodwill that's been giving to them. You've shown them that you're not just trying to bait and switch them. And then the people who engage with you have already crossed like a pretty big qualification hurdle where it's like, again, in my case, if they're like, they like that number or they want to have a conversation about it because my math is wrong, then it's like, cool, now I don't have to have that conversation with them already. I've already got past it. So that's what I would say. What have you seen work most? Like more direct CTA and try to figure out how you can actually bake the value of the lead magnet into the message itself.
Yeah, solid. And I think that comes down to relevancy too, like you knowing your customer, working with local businesses. Maybe they're not as a sophisticated buyer as like this huge SaaS company where you need to have so much reciprocity and show the value and build all this trust, where it doesn't take nearly as much. So there's probably like the
100%.
scale of like sophistication. The more sophisticated, probably like the better the lead magnet. Maybe the less sophisticated, somebody who doesn't receive cold emails 100 times a day, need
100%.
to be a little bit less on that. Great. Let's go to this. Anything come to your mind when you read this one? What's your best email script?
Fun games, man. You're trying to get me to give away everything. I would say the two best cold email scripts I've ever written, I'm still using with active clients. So it's like I can't actually completely give you the sauce on this one. I would say though, from a more fundamental perspective, the best cold email scripts I've written are the simplest ones with a company who has a really strong offer. So like literally 3, maybe 4 lines where it's like, hey, reaching out because, again, really simple relevance, like reaching out because so you have a couple really strong ratings, things like that. Let me think. Actually, I can think of one. It was for a company that did Facebook ads for realtors, but they did like off market leads or something
Mm-hmm.
like that. Or maybe it's real estate investors for off market leads. And it was
Cool.
something that was literally like, hey, reaching out because I saw you have 4.5 stars, looking for the best in this city. I'm looking for one real estate investor to, send off market leads. Last year we helped X amount make whatever, like $100 million in total. And then the scarcity is really important. So like, we're only going to work with one person for zip code. Do you have some time to chat? And like,
Nice.
that was crazy. That's like the general formula. If I can get away with it, I'm going to try to use that.
Offer proof, scarcity slash
Yeah,
urgency slash FOMO.
yeah, 100% of the time. And then I would say that's the biggest sort of, if I kind of think anecdotally here, that's probably the biggest filter I'm using to decide how sophisticated I'm going to have to make a message. Like, if I know the offer is so good and I can really pull these levers with urgency, scarcity, you're probably going to want to go with something that's just kind of cuts to the chase and is super lean, versus if it's a bit less clear, building some more sophistication into the message where you're basically giving value before they've even talked to you at
Mhm.
all, I think is going to be a more straight path to revenue, even if it's a bit more work up front.
Yeah, solid. I like that.
Sweet.
Here's a good one. Selling AI email agents to real estate agents to handle inquiries, saving hours of their days. How would you frame this, Mr. Mike?
Selling AI email agents for real estate agents. Hours of the day, how to frame this. I would literally, again, let's kind of like break down high level what the problem is that you're trying to solve, right? So if you are selling this email agent tool, I'm assuming you'd be positioning it more as like a time saving thing. I would flip that immediately and go like, this is how much it's costing you. You're losing this amount of money per year because you have your agents doing all this manual work. And then I would kind of just like, yeah, see if you can figure out how many realtors they have. If you're selling this product, I'm assuming you know something about how many hours they're actually spending on this. And then basically just do the math in the email. Say like, hey, reaching out to you because I see you're running this real estate company. You got a couple employees. This is really important. If you're going to do the stuff I'm talking about baking the value into the email, show your work. Don't just make blanket statements, because 99% of the time you're going to be wrong, especially with local business. So at least show them why you're wrong. So yeah, so you got a couple employees. Based on the information I can find online, I'd ballpark you have 5. So if they're spending a couple hours a day doing this, the average realtor makes about this much money. My estimate is you're losing about a couple $100,000 a year just on your realtors, like doing a couple hours of manual work a day. I can completely replace this with the product. If you have a couple minutes later this week, I could show you how it works, get you set up in 15 minutes or something like that. That would probably be how I would think about it.
Solid.
Yeah.
Olu, you just got the sauce, my friend.
That's the sauce. Let me
The
know if it works. If you run it and it works, shoot me a DM on LinkedIn. I'd love to hear about it.
And 20% to Mike on that campaign, actually.
Yeah. I'll send you my shirt.
Yeah, perfect. Cool. Yeah, like doing the research on, or making the personalization on an estimate of how big their team is, essentially. And maybe only targeting teams, Olu, and like people who have that, or maybe themselves. I mean, like, I think another idea would be how much time they're spending on it and what is their cost per hour. And it's like, you just need to go show houses.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think I think the most important thing, if you're going to do any of this stuff, is you really need to show your work. Because people take a defensive position if they're like being told things, versus if you're kind of working collaboratively with them. And then the other thing is, people really like pointing out when things are wrong. Don't know why. Very common thing, human psychology. Like, if you want an answer on, I remember there's a thread a while back, if you want an answer on Quora, don't ask the question, just like post the wrong answer. and then you'll have like a bunch of people that'll give you the right one. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's like bringing in the problem awareness and solution awareness. I think that's pretty solid. Okay. Let's just talk about like lead lists in general. So like, we don't need to answer this specifically, but what's been like your best performing? Because you do local businesses. Obviously there's probably a bazillion different ways that you're scraping. Like, what's your methodology for list building?
Yeah, 100%. I actually, let me see here. I have a doc I was going to share with you guys on like exactly this thing. I just forget what I called it. I'll pull it up at the end.
Okay.
But basically, yeah, one of the tricky things about doing cold email for local biz is most of the traditional databases aren't really well equipped to do this. A lot of them are kind of getting most of their data from LinkedIn for good reason too. It's like it's self-reported information on where people are working and what they're building and whatever, but like local businesses, their customers aren't on LinkedIn. So for them, they're not really actively updating it for the overwhelming majority. So I would say most Google map scrapers, you're going to be in good shape just starting with that. And there's a bunch of good ones. The first one we used was Outscraper, outscraper.com. We've used D7 Lead Finder, which has been phenomenal. And then recently we started using OpenMart, which has also been really great. And they have really phenomenal like persona level data, which is super interesting. I'm excited to get into it. No idea how they get it, but it's been pretty good so far in some initial tests. So I would say like Apollo Data, ZoomInfo, LinkedIn, like just completely throw that out if you're trying to do outreach toward local business. Does the source make a significant difference? Yes, 100% makes a very big difference. I'll give you another thing here. These are really good sources for initial list building, but if you have a very niche vertical within local business, like let's say realtors, right? Going back to one of the previous comments, we actually built a process internally to scrape Zillow, and that has been like phenomenal data. Why? Because it's a realtor marketplace. So these people are like, they're managing their own profiles, like promoting themselves. Their emails are there, their phone numbers are there. And it's much more thorough than like a Google Maps, for example. So you can use like a Google Maps scraper. You can use these other databases to build these initial lists. And then again, if you have strong data and analytics and can start to identify what verticals are working the best, then you can also kind of go on these niche solutions. I think as a general rule of thumb, this doesn't necessarily just apply to local business data, but all data. The harder the data is to get, the better it's typically going to perform because other people aren't messaging them. Saturation is a big part of kind of deciding how effective it's. Variable is the same.
Yeah. Cool. Love it. Vincent, we were running, so maybe kind of, you don't really do too much in the SaaS space right now, but maybe going back to your old days, because you said there was a banger offer there. We're thinking of running our SaaS company with a free trial as CTA in the emails, then letting them take a subscription to the program. Unfortunately, the percent of lead per people contacted is low. What would you recommend for Vincent if you have any SaaS on this? I know you do the local businesses.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's like we can do SaaS like targeted towards local business, you know? So I would say it's still kind of within the realm of what we do. The question I would ask, like, Vincent, I would probably want to have, I would ask a bunch of questions to kind of break this down because like what, for you, like what's the percentage of you that's actually low? Like, first of all, is that even correct? Like maybe you're like, well, I'm getting one sign up per 1,000 people I message. It's like, okay, well, if you have 1 million people in your TAM, then like that's not that bad actually. Friend of ours, also very popular, Taylor Heron does a lot of this stuff. And he'll tell you too, like for some of these large scale campaigns that they've run, like they've been happy with positive reply for every 1,000 emails, 1,500 emails. And then when you can leverage scale, if you have a big TAM, then it becomes very profitable to find these little 1% improvements everywhere, changing the wording a little bit, using like a bit of personalization for like I don't even, I don't know. There's so many little things you can do. Talking about contacting local businesses.
So
Yeah.
he
So
is
if you're
contacting local businesses with his SaaS.
right. So if you're, yeah, like if you're contacting all local businesses, I would probably just like I would hit the volume lever. Honestly, you're gonna get a lot more feedback from the market if you can send a lot of emails. Which there's like tens of millions of local businesses in the United States alone. So
Mhm.
I would again, this is kind of a tough question to ask because there's so many things that goes into it. But Vincent, if you want to send me a DM on LinkedIn, like breaking it down a little bit more, I can help you out. I don't want to take too much time here.
Yeah, dope. Okay, cool. Closed a few home service / local business clients recently have high intent leads, but they're personal emails. Any tips when writing copy to help get local businesses new business with cold email? B2C play versus B2B. Anything there?
Close a few home service local business clients that have high intent leads, but they're personal. Any tips when writing copy to help get local business new clients with cold email? I mean, no, it's the same. If you have their personal information, you're basically just following that same process of like, what are their problems? How do we help solve them? How do I create the best message possible to get their attention and like kind of invoke enough curiosity for them to want to talk with us? That's ultimately what it comes down to at the end of the day. So if you can, I would just really orient yourself around that. Like, it's almost, you want to be able to empathize so effectively that you can almost like feel the pain that these people are
Nice.
feeling, you know, like you want to kind of sit in it. It's like the stress that a local business owner might have when they can't, like, you can build these whole stories in your brain, and I think it helps out a lot. Like, stress a local business owner might have, maybe they have like, you know, a family, they're not getting enough leads, the Starbucks just opened down the road and it's taking all their clients. Like, you can kind of build these narratives in your head, but from the empathy is where the like really banger campaign ideas come from. So again, marketer first, engineer second.
Yeah. And would you say B2C is a viable option? Because it sounds like maybe it's like a roofer or a plumber or something like that. Like, is B2C an option with that framework? Have you seen that work?
If you have the emails, I haven't done the data piece too much. Like, if you're getting the emails from some other source and you can run it, I would say you're gonna be able to do it. Ultimately, it's not something I've dipped my toes in too much. I guess the closest thing for me would be when we did the candidate sourcing, like way back. We would pull people's personal emails from like their LinkedIn profiles and things like that. Like, we had a whole system to be able to do this, and we got leads out of it. So all this to say, like, you can definitely do it. You're fundamentally solving the same problem. Just keep in mind the problems they're going to have, the solutions you're going to have. Also, you know, the language might be a bit more conversational, less professional. Like, again, deep understanding of your ICP, the problem you solve, it's like it's the same process fundamentally.
Yeah. I like the empathy piece. If you could hit on like your neighbor's landscaping's looking really good and or something like that. I don't know. I
Yeah,
like,
like it's, yeah, 100%.
yeah, I like these situational ones. There's a few more I want to get to, so we're
Sweet.
gonna jam through these. Richard, I'm a commercial insurance agent focused on tech companies. Just started my instantly campaign. Any suggestions? I assume.
So, commercial insurance agent focused on tech companies. So you'd be messaging tech companies in this, I guess, to sell them commercial insurance. I just started my instantly. So on the strategic side, all the stuff I've been talking about, like, I think it's really common when you get started to kind of ride the wave of the Hermosi, like, oh, I have a no-brainer offer. Like, there's no risk, there's no good, and it's like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm a huge Hermosi fan, to be clear, but I think what people miss is like, if you're messaging somebody that's busy, they don't give a they don't care at all. Like, unless it's a problem that they're actively dealing with right now and is like annoying to them. It's like, Austin, think about what you got going on, man. I know you're a busy guy. Even if somebody's like, look at how cool this thing is, you're like, wow, yeah, I would love to do that, but I have these 10 other things that I have to solve, right?
Yeah.
So you have to get at one of those 10 things if you're going to want to get any of their attention. So that would be it on the strategy side. On the data side, If you're going after tech and like SaaS companies, Sassy DB is a really good database as well. You can give a kick. They're like, again, this is just kind of through the grapevine. I've heard their data stuff's pretty good. Deliverability, I would maybe diversify with some Outlook infrastructure, like some Microsoft infrastructure as well. If you're just sending from Gmail, it might not, like the bigger the tech company, you might want a bit more sort of diversity there. Scaled mail is good. Hypertide is good. Is Instantly Offered done for you Outlook stuff, or is it just Gmail right now? I actually don't know.
Gmail.
Just Gmail? Yeah. So Hypertide, Scaled Mail are good for Outlook too, just so you can kind of leverage both sides of the coin. That would be my suggestions. But again, I'm an Instantly expert, but I'm not an expert on this specific thing right now.
All good. Okay, another rapid fire. We're running a bookkeeping business. Any tips on, I'm assuming, what the CTA should be for a bookkeeping business?
I would just start, if you don't know, like, again, what are the problems? How can you solve those problems? Like, and just take the money and how you currently run your business out of it. Like, is there a way you could offer one of your services for free? It's like, if yes, take that further. Like, is there a way you could offer one of those services and like literally embed it into the email somehow? Like, I don't actually know. I'm not a bookkeeper. So, but that's how I would think about it, is like, how can you, bookkeeping is a very commoditized business at the end of the day. So cold email, your main thing that you're going to have to figure out is how to differentiate. If you can solve somebody's problem before they even have to talk with you, I think you're on the right track. That's how I would think of it.
Last one. We're trying to do recruiting campaigns to get more agents to join our FMO company. FMO company. I don't know what FMO company has.
Any tips? I don't know. Free money.
Okay.
No. Any tips? Maybe help it. Defining
Field
FMO
marketing.
might be. I don't know.
I don't know.
If you could define FMO, that might be helpful. I would just say, I mean, yeah, it's the same advice, basically. I would say it's easier to generate some of these leads if you can find the thing, but really what you're trying to do is you're trying to figure out why people don't like their job. Like, that's what you're trying to do for any recruiting campaign. And so you're basically trying to isolate, for the type of person I'm reaching out to, what are the crappy things about their job that I can like poke on, and how can I then repackage that as like why working with us is like better, and how we alleviate whatever pain that is. So that's kind of what you want to get at. I could give you more specific advice if I knew more about the industry and things like that, but that's pretty much what you're trying to accomplish. Definitely doable though. I'd say that.
Love it. Yeah, field marketing. Cool. Mike, appreciate you, man. Appreciate you joining. You dropped a lot of sauce. I put you on 100%. The hot seat, a couple of these ones. Where can people find you?
Yeah, LinkedIn, kaleacquisition.com are probably the big ones. I'm pretty active on LinkedIn these days. I'm always trying to post content, obviously busy and what have you. I meant to send these
maybe drop
over
on the LinkedIn, or on the LinkedIn live and the YouTube live and the X live.
Yeah.
And then
okay. Great.
Will be able to see it. So
yeah, sweet. There. Yeah, 100%. But no, this has been an absolute pleasure. Like I said, it's been Instantly has been a really large part of the journey over here at Kale Acquisition. I know my co-founder, Mr. Rashawn Kathir, as well, feels very much the same way as me. So yeah, man, really phenomenal to be a part of one of these, be able to share some of the value that I've gained from all the other guests that you guys have had on here over the years. And yeah, really excited to kind of continue to develop this partnership between our company and Instantly as well.
Love it. Mike, appreciate it, man.
Appreciate you, brother. Talk soon. Have a great Friday, everyone. Cheers.